Jin Xiuhui was unhurried and said lightly, "I'm really sorry. Actually, I do. It's also because it's about countless lives." He didn't care when he was being targeted by the inside. Jin Xiuhui slowly squatted down. Take the torch lying on the ground in your hand. Then slowly stand up straight. At this time, the elven boss warned him loudly not to move. "Do you want to be made a hornet's nest by us?" Jin Xiuhui laughed shamefully, and then said without care, "Shoot as much as you want." But Jin Xiuhui's answer made the elf boss very puzzled. "I can't figure out what medicine he sells in his gourd." He tightened his grip on the long worker. "Take your concentration to the extreme." The bastard turned to face the three elves, said with an evil expression, "This guy is going to be baked crispy." I saw that he was holding a flower pot in his left hand. There's a carrot in it. It is a plant endemic to the elven forest, known as a mandrake. The hapless little guy was already scared and almost crying. He kept shouting for help. The elf who was fierce and vicious just now. At this time, his face turned white with fright. Quickly put away the bow and arrow in your hand, so as not to accidentally injure the mandrake in front of you. At this time, the three elf beauties finally understood. Even if there are a lot of them, even if they are strong, it's useless in front of this bastard demon. Can only obediently let the other party fiddle. Three beautiful women are blocked in a cave by nasty men. Step by step, retreat to the wall, and there is no way back. Accusing and begging for mercy said that it had recently come to a monthly level. Physical inconvenience. When the nasty man heard it, he drooled excitedly. Let's start the main body of the story. The three elven beauties were terrified, but refinement reveals marketing. He slowly moved the torch in his hand towards the carrot. The carrot desperately dodged but couldn't get out of the pot. Tears flowed uncontrollably. His mouth wailed and begged for mercy. "Please let Jin Xiuhui be cruel." Say, three beauties. "I don't want to see plants tortured by me." "Then go back." The three elves scolded as they stepped back. "Are you still human?" "You mean bastard. You disgusting villain." Jin Xiuhui walked forward and saw Cece and said, "Yes, yes. Thank you for the compliment. Hurry back." A female elf couldn't bear it anymore. Said hatefully, "You are not popular with women at first glance." This sentence stabbed Jin Xiuhui's pain point. The original hippie smile disappeared in an instant. Instead, a layer of frost enveloped it. I moved the carrot away slightly. But Carrot didn't know why. Instead, they were even more afraid. It's like a mountain rain is coming, and the wind is full of buildings. Sure enough, a short, stunned moment. I put the carrot close again. This time it's closer. Carrot screamed and said, "Let me go. I am innocent." The three elves were so frightened that they quickly shut up. "Don't dare to scold this bastard anymore." Jin Xiuhui quickened his pace. The three elves kept their distance from him. It also accelerates the pace of regression. The four of them kept a distance and walked away. Soon they were at the edge of the cave. There is no way back. At this time, the elf boss had not yet come up with a countermeasure. I couldn't help but secretly say that it was broken. He hurriedly motioned for Jin Xiuhui to stop, and anxiously said, "Calm down. This is already the end. Let's talk here." Jin Xiuhui stopped moving forward. A pair of elf beauties who died watching them. Carrots feel dangerous. His body trembled like chaff. Sure enough, the bastard demon opened his bloody jaws. Slowly approach the crisp, dripping leaves of the carrot. Then take a bite of the leaf and slowly pull it upwards. There was a cruel and vicious glint in his eyes. Carrots were scared to pee. Let out a piercing scream. "You might as well just get rid of me." Saliva and saliva. Jin Xiuhui held the leaves in his mouth. Slurred orders climb up. "Don't talk nonsense, hurry." Three elven beauties. I have never encountered such an evil human being. Anxiously surrendered to Jin Xiuhui. Wait for the three elves to move some distance away from the entrance of the cave. Jin Xiuhui also climbed out. The two sides remained at a distance, and there was a stalemate. Jin Xiuhui held the carrot leaf in his mouth and did not speak. But I was silently thinking in my heart, stay outside. Haber should be easier to see. It's almost time. That guy should be here too. But if it is discovered by other elves first, I'm going to die. This state of stalemate. The competition is the psychological quality of both sides. Since the competition is shameless and evil. How ordinary people are opponents of bastard demons. Sure enough, the kind-hearted elven beauty was the first to lose. The elf boss asked with concern, "What is wrong with you?" The elven beauty replied to my eras bitterly. I was nervous and a little sick to my stomach. The elf beauty on the other side trembled and said, "Seeing such a horrible scene, I started to have anemia. My era, worthy of being the boss. I just listened to her loud commands, and I held back. How can you be in front of the ogre? Showing such a cowardly side. It's that he hasn't finished his next words." The stomach gurgled in meditation. An uncontrollable feeling of weakness came from the body. Then he collapsed to the ground as soon as his leg went limp. At this time, the three elf beauties leaned weakly against each other. Has given up on resisting the bastard Jin Xiuhui. I see that Yulian is boring. Kim Xiuhui was shocked by this sudden incident. I don't know what this is all about. Admiralty began to analyze the original. Think back to when we first met. The elves' eye sockets seemed to be sunken. Give up without even giving him a chance to explain. It was as if they were going to get out of here. In such a huge and lush jungle. There was no birdsong. And even along the way, I didn't see any animals, including rabbits and chapters. Could it be caused by the domino effect? The animals all moved to the corners of the mountains. So the Evglow in the middle. The jungle will be empty. Elves don't hurt plants. Then their food is definitely meat. But there are no animals here. Thinking of this, Jin Xiuhui understood. Ever since the monster domino effect has occurred, they have been hungry for months. The screen cuts back to Haver's battlefield. Among the many elves, Shooter and Melika take turns attacking. He was also tired, who was originally full of energy. And the elves, although there are many people, can take turns to rest. But he seemed to be more tired than he was. There was something strange in Haver's mind. Judging by the physique of the elves, it is impossible to burn out so quickly. And it's all elves overdrawn together. Haver couldn't figure it out. I had to put it aside for now. Take advantage of the elves to show their flaws. He's going to break through the encirclement around him. Now is the best chance. We must hurry to rescue the young master. Haver crouched down and adjust the center of gravity. Maximize the 3-ring magic star in your body. The magic ring spins rapidly. The surging energy exploded. Then kick the ground with all your feet. The body flew out like a cannonball. Melika roared, "Do your best." Once again, pull the tip of the hair on the Dragon Palace engineering hair. It was Haver who had ascended. As Mr. Gong remembered, the engineering wool wrap is obliquely incoming towards Haver's involvement. He couldn't stop to block the attack. The other party finally revealed what a flaw was. Once the speed of the forward rush is stopped, the other side will form something again. It was at the last moment of the siege of the city. Haver tilted his head slightly, apparently straight, and apparently dodged this attack. Even if the long-haired flanks slashed his cheeks, he is still duty-free. Rush forward, just because there is a belief in the heart. He had to rush to the young master's side. The man was taken by his own brother. When he returned from the battle, discover that your brother and the enemy's wife are together. He was angry that he was blind. Let's start the story of the Commissar. Facing the insights of thousands of planes, Haver accelerated forward without flinching. He couldn't afford to delay any longer. It is necessary to rush to the young master's side. A genie on a branch, seeing Haver break through so desperately, shouted at his companions. He broke through our encirclement. I didn't expect the partners around me. They all slumped on the branches. They don't have enough to eat for a long time. The stomach is already weak. Now it's hard to move even when your strength is exhausted. At this time, there was a snapping sound around him. The branches trembled slightly. A figure swooped out like a cheetah. It turned out to be the strongest Scoramelica, like a light tank soaring through the air. The elves around them let out one exclamation after another. Kind Melica, not only to share their own food with others, and even held out to the end in battle. Melica put the siege hair on the string, then quickly opened the bow and released the arrows. The action is smooth, all in one go. There is no aiming action at all. Haver is well aware of the power of engineering Mao. He did not dare to meet this attack. Quickly dodge and dodge to the side. Engineering hairs hit the rocks. Didn't hurt any plants. The impact of the collision between the two is too great. Haver dodged the front though, but he was forced to stop by the fierce wind. Slammed into the trunk of a tree beside him. Melica clenched in her hand, and the fur flew over. Haver felt a strong wind blow over him. He was a little out of breath from the oppression. At the same time, it was firmly locked by Melica. The tips of the fur shone with a cold light. Straight down, at the last moment, Haver was able to escape the lockup, apparently dodging Melica's power blows. As a guardian knight, he had only one belief in his heart, even at the cost of one's own life. He also had to rush to the young master's side as soon as possible to protect him, because he is the savior of all those in the realm. Haver's intention to break through was too obvious. All the elves saw it. Melica forgoes the ranged advantage of the bow. Instead, he entered the battle with a bow and long hair. The purpose is to contain him. The elves are desperately squeezing the last of their strength. Support Melica in battle. Arrow after arrow was fired at Haver. Under the bright moonlight, a leaf walks alone in midair. Enjoy the beautiful view of the forest. The sound of drifting in the mountains sounded at this time. A handsome young knight appears in the moonlight. He was in midair. Tap the page lightly on your toes. I borrowed a little bit of force. Then it soared into the sky. Leaves walking in the air. He didn't even feel anyone touch him. And the knight's figure was already far away. The elves were shocked. Is this human a monster? How could anyone have such a high level of understanding? It took them 100 years to learn and master it. The other side only watched it once in battle. It's so easy to learn. Haver didn't know how the elves feel in their hearts right now. I didn't even have time to turn my head to take a look. The arrows that came made him rush forward with all the time, judging by sound and wind pressure alone. The direction in which the arrow came. Dodge the raindrops of attacks, just to make yourself a little faster. The fighting spirit and magic power were used by him to the extreme. That's when it happened. He suddenly had a sense of wonder. It's like entering another realm. Although fate hangs by a thread, but the heart is extremely calm, like the moonlight reflected in the alarm bell. Any slight movement around you, all poured into his calm heart. Lake Haver had an epiphany in a battle of life and death. This feeling of being in control intoxicated him. Melica didn't know that Haver was among animals. But this human being is getting faster and faster. Gradually shake off the elves. He had no choice but to use the trick of pressing the bottom of the box. 2 engineering hairs were placed on the dragon bow by him. No one has ever been able to dodge this trick. He firmly believed that the human sword master would die. But he hesitated. The kind-hearted Melica didn't want to kill the human. He admired the talent of this human being. 3 worlds in the blink of an eye. Haver had come to the top of the Alencia tree. He was in midair and still couldn't find Jin Xiuhui. Haver was really in a hurry. I deeply regret that I didn't have enough strength to come too late. Then he yelled, "Young master, where are you?" Loud voices echoed through the forest. But there was no voice from Jin Xiuhui, just when his heart was like ashes. A mouth-watering aroma of barbecue, drifting in the wind. Haver's first reaction was that the young master was roasted. He hurried to the ground, hurrying to find the smell of meat. As a result, he saw the picture of doubting life. Jin Xiuhui. Sit on the edge of the stone slab with 3 elf beauties, talking while eating barbecue. It's like a few friends having a picnic in the woods. And Haver was sweating, soaking wet. It's like just being fished out of the water. Exhausted gasps of air. The expression on his face was mixed. Unbelievable. Looked at the few people in front of him. Jin Xiuhui looked at Haver's pitiful appearance. Concerned asked, "Oops, what happened to you? Did you go to war?" Then the bastard threw Haver aside, turned his head, and continued to accompany the 3 beauties. Jin Xiuhui picked up a slice of barbecue. Said, "This is too familiar. Eat quickly." "That's not good. The pork has to be grilled until golden brown. It's crispy to be delicious." After Jin Xiuhui took care of the 3 beauties, he beckoned Haver to come and do it. It's like a salesman at a dinner party. Not only will Party A's father serve comfortably, even take care of the feelings of your companions, but the sitting posture of 3 Party A's fathers. No matter how you look at it, it looks like being sold by Jin Xiuhui. Kim Xiuhui introduced Haver to 3 beauties. Only then did the beauties know that Jin Xiuhui was not a little follower. Look at this scene. The whole meal is the most natural with only the bastard. Jin Xiuhui pointed to a beautiful woman and said to Haver, "This is the elf team leader, Myra." Myra chewed on roast pork and said hello awkwardly. First meeting, and then he didn't know what to say. Jin Xiuhui didn't say a word when he saw Haver's sullen words. The blaming one said, "Oops, stinky boy. Hurry up and say hello. You're so silent." Haver is really in no mood to speak right now. His outlook on life has been turned upside down. He wanted to strangle the bastard in front of him, and then strangle yourself. A vibrator for the elf beauty's own use. It was stolen by a lewd man and planted in a flower pot. When you're bored, bake it. When you're hungry, lick 2 bites. It didn't take long. The shaking radish was finally played with impotence by a lewd man. Let's start the main body of the story. When Haver is ready. Myra was embarrassed to say that. "Can you add one more?" Jin Xiuhui said generously. "Of course. Sold as a gold medal." The most feared thing is that Party A's father does not make any requests. If Party A's father asks in person, that means that there is hope that the project will be negotiated. Melika chased after Haver. The kind-hearted man was also shocked by this scene. Shyly covered her figure and watched a few people eat barbecue. Although he was hungry, he endured it. That's when Myra's voice came. "Melika, come on." There were 2 more places on Haver's side. "Melika, I'm sorry." "Squeeze there." Myra-chan told Kim Xiuhui. "We Melika were hungry all the time. Can you get him to eat more?" The other party did add only 1 person. But the minimum number of meals is up to 10 people. Jin Xiuhui smiled and said, "You can eat, but that's what we do to travel. Prepared rations. So not a lot. The elves around with bows. I guess I can only smell it. Murder and heart." This last sentence is too deadly. Refinement howls asshole. Every sentence is a routine. The elves who are at the end of the crossbow smell the aroma of barbecue wafting in the wind. The bow and arrows in his hand became heavier and heavier. Gradually, there is a tendency to lose control. Myra was just about to put a piece of barbecue meat in her mouth. Hearing Jin Xiuhui's words, the fragrant barbecue stopped on his lips in an instant. Remembering the painful life of the clansmen in the recent period, the corners of Myra's lips twitched, although hungry in the belly. But he lost his appetite. It's all to blame for his incompetence as the patriarch. Jin Xiuhui then said lightly, "The male elves have been doing household chores at home. The female elves waiting outside have successfully hunted. They should continue to go hungry." The 2 elves think of their hungry husbands at home. I couldn't help but cry. Although the female elves have strong fighting strength, but they are equally gentle and kind. Jin Xiuhui continued to say to himself, "What happened to the elves? How long can the old elves last? It will die of starvation first. Or will the ecology change back to the original first? This is something that no one can predict. Jin Xiuhui didn't speak fast, but the words are clear. Every word is like a knife. Stab Myra in the heart. Jin Xiuhui cried with joy and said, but it made me cry out loud. The bastard is happy in his heart by now, but tears of sorrow must be shed. It's really hard. For him, these questions that Jin Xiuhui said, it's a brutal truth in front of the elves. They can't get around it, they can't hide from it. Elves are plants as intimate companions. This is their life that is integrated into the bone marrow. They can't bear to hurt plants. Meat is their only food. They would rather starve to death than destroy their lives. But how long can they last? Maybe the next starving elf. It's the loved ones around them. Jin Xiuhui waited for the temple to think for a while. Then he gave his own proposal. Why don't you talk to us? Myra is still immersed in self-blame. Habitually refused. We don't negotiate with humans. Jin Xiuhui took the mandrake beside him, pointing at him insidiously and saying, oops. What are you talking about? Because of this lucky snail. Didn't we start negotiating a long time ago? I just used him to blackmail you into backing down. I also persuade the hungry to talk after eating meat. Isn't that all negotiated? Myra's teeth gritted hatefully. He'd love to say it's all you, bastard. But in the end, I held back. It doesn't make sense to say things that have already inherited the facts. Jin Xiuhui took out his own negotiation capital. Confidently said to Myra, first, I can provide you with survival. The word survival answered in Myra's mind, like a pair of powerful hands. Hold his heart tightly. I think of the clansman wandering on the verge of life and death. His breathing couldn't help but get heavier and heavier. Jin Xiuhui didn't seem to see Myra's face. He continued to talk to himself. I can provide you with all-you-can-eat pork and pickled plums for barbecue. Speaking of which, Jin Xiuhui couldn't help but think sinisterly. Strictly speaking, bituminous coal is also derived from numbers. They certainly don't know about this modern knowledge. Otherwise, they won't be used. 2 given by Jin Xiuhui. The conditions made Myra's heart flutter. He was caught in a difficult choice. Jin Xiuhui continued. You've been eating. It must be all dried meat and bones. But later on, you can eat delicious barbecue. Plus, I'll build it for you for free. Stored meat food bitter. Guarantee that the meat will not spoil and rot. The heavenly court in Myra's heart began to tilt. If Jin Xiuhui can deliver on his promise, then the whole clan can live. Mystic Irz's law after 3. Raise their own doubts. So what do you want? Jin Xiuhui replied, I also need to survive. If you don't agree with this consultation, we will also have countless adults and children died of cold. That's why I need you. Give it to me once a month, and let's see a number of wins and losses. Just a little bit. That way we can all survive. I'll tell you to take it. A way not to hurt the trees at night. So the safety of the trees. You can rest assured. One more thing. Elves come and carry the meat. Probably a little faster. So please divide the 100 sprites into 2 groups. One group is responsible for the application. Another group came to help us build a house. What do you think? Let's survive together. Jin Xiuhui's words stopped here. His attitude has become dict. Now it's up to Myra's choice. The elves all around, seeing that Myra did not immediately refuse. I already guessed that his heart was shaken. They loudly reminded him that he couldn't trust humans. There is not a single word of truth in the mouth of human beings. Myra was too entangled. On the one hand, there is the life and death of the Guanghu people. The other side, it is the elves' deep-seated aversion to humanity. Myra's mind remembers her mother's terminal. Myra's mother was in the human city of Garfield. Communicate with them and live for a while, because their lifespan is so short. So they want to have a lot of things in their lives. That's why they are greedy and liar, and even committed all kinds of viciousness. So Myra, if you meet a human, I can only trust humans who can be true friends. Minutes and seconds passed. Everyone was waiting for Myra's reply. The roast on the slate is cooked through. There was even a slight smell of burning. But still no one moved anywhere. The scene was quiet, except for the sizzling sound of roasting meat on the slate. No other sounds. Jin Xiuhui quietly waited for a reply. My arrow was too entangled. It was in his lifetime. Encounter the most difficult thing to choose. Life and faith are ripe and important in the end. Don't be afraid of the sun shining through the branches of the Alencia tree. Sprinkled on my arrow. It's like a mother gently caressing her child. My arrow has finally decided. He replied decisively, I refused. I'll only make deals with humans who are friends with me. My arrow is not Ren series' old stubbornness. But when you can't choose, he chose the counsel his mother had given. Hear this answer. Jin Xiuhui felt irritable in his heart. He didn't expect to trouble the other party so much. Obviously, it has been shaken. But why did it suddenly change again? The only thing an elven beauty can trade for is her body. As long as you can get food, let them do whatever they want. But the nasty bastard said, a minimum of 100 beauties is required to satisfy him. When he returned to the village with 100 elven beauties, suddenly out of the way many rogue old men surround the elven beauties. The nasty bastard reveals his true intentions at this point. Let's start the main body of the story. In the face of Myra's decisive refusal, Kim Xiuhui fell into painful memories. He was always alone in the real world. Because it's poor, the dress is shabby and ugly. In order to be able to learn a little more, when I went to a workshop on traditional architecture, he also knew one thing for a long time. That is, everyone is polite on the surface. Behind his back, he treated him as a joke, the so-called soft-spoken conversation, but just enough for him to hear. Dislike insults. Denigration is not enough. Even so, he gritted his teeth and persisted, just to accumulate a little more knowledge. Lift yourself out of poverty. Yet one day, a classmate suddenly invited him to dinner. This kind of high-cost barbecue restaurant. He never came in. Classmates said to him, don't take what everyone says to heart. And in all fairness, your grades are much better than theirs. Jin Xiuhui quietly listened to the comfort of his classmates. Although these comforting words are somewhat casual, insincere enough, but his humble and broken heart. But I felt a little warmth. Then, the classmate picked up a piece of beef and said that it was cooked. You will be pleasantly surprised when you taste it. Jin Xiuhui picked up the beef and put it to his mouth. I didn't have to wait to eat it. He humbly and carefully apologized to his classmates, although he would love to eat this delicacy right away. But he still made himself appear polite and not squeezing, because he was afraid of being looked down upon by his classmates. He wanted to grasp that pitiful and fragile strand of dignity. Just as he was about to eat the beef, the corners of the classmate's mouth rose slightly. It seems to say casually, have you ever only eaten canned tuna? I've never eaten any other meat. This casual remark from a classmate. It's like a punch. Hit Jin Xiuhui's heart hard. Jin Xiuhui felt it clearly. The lofty posture of the classmate. Looked down on his gaze. False polite words are spoken in his mouth. And a contemptuous smile. Jin Xiuhui understood. A classmate is feeding a filthy dog's head. He felt joy in doing good. Jin Xiuhui's glassy, fragile heart, completely shattered by a punch. A wisp of dignity that desperately wants to grasp is like a point. The precarious lanterns were blown out by the strong winds. He held back tears in his eyes and chewed on the beef in his mouth. Jin Xiuhui was nirvana at this moment. He forcibly took his dignity out of the glass, bloodied on the ground, desperately trampling on this alms for dirty dogs. Beef that was originally difficult to swallow. Now it's delicious. The more he chewed, the stranger it became. Why is beef so delicious? It was so delicious that I forgot the pain in my heart. Forget about life's worries. The warm sun shone into his heart. Sweep away his gloom. Even the classmate in front of him who looked down on him. They're like angels sent from heaven to save him. It was he who allowed himself to eat beef for the first time. This guy is such a nice guy. Jin Xiuhui asked his friend happily. Can I have another beef or two? The classmates also happily answered their friends. You can eat 3 more servings. That's it. This guy became Jin Xiuhui's only friend. There was also laughter in his life. This is a deep-seated experience. Let Jin Xiuhui understand giving and taking. There is a give and take. In the face of interest, dignity is not even a fart. As long as there is a proper price, anything can be exchanged. Friendship is a big deal. You can buy it with beef. Jin Xiuhui did not hesitate to take out the beef from his backpack. He firmly believed that he had been willing. A killer cocoon whose dignity has been trampled on. It will completely conquer the hungry elf beauty. Willingly floated in front of him. A flash of light suddenly appeared in front of Myra. He was completely shocked. He wondered what kind of meat it was. The color is completely different. It gives a crystal clear feeling. Refined without any superfluous nonsense. Place the beef straight on the piping hot slate. Fat and lean beef is roasted at high temperatures. Instantaneously secretes a thick amount of oil. In a burst of sizzling sounds. The mouth-watering aroma of meat in the sound soon filled the audience. The moment the beef is eaten, Myra is first to lose love. Tears of joy poured out. Melika used his slender jade hand. Gently cover the cherry mouthful. Now let him dedicate himself to Jin Xiuhui. In the end, the 2 elf beauties felt love. From the tip of the tongue all the way to the empty stomach. All of them are pouring out their love. Myra made a decision without hesitation. Hami made a deal with Jin Xiuhui. Even if the elves around him shouted to dissuade him, it can't stop him from eating beef. For 500 years, Everglow, who had never had contact with any other race, jungle elves, and the Fulong of mankind. The Trao territory signed an operational agreement. Jin Xiuhui finally returned to the territory with the elves. Have her in this adventure. I was greatly wronged. He never figured it out, since it can be solved with beef. Why let him fight with the elves? The inhabitants of the territory were talking. The last time Master Lloyd brought back was an orc. This time, I brought the elves back. He won't bring the dragons back again. Myra's first visit to a human settlement. The habits of the index fingers are unobstructed. His ideas were strongly impacted. Woodwork can be found everywhere around. It's all made by harming plants. When I saw it with my own eyes, I felt even more cruel. Jin Xiuhui guessed the painful feeling in Myra's heart. There was no turning back, though. But the voice of self-talk was heard. Some races are particularly hostile to eating animals. Any race, regions, and even smaller groups, they all have different values. Everyone, just give each other a step in this regard. This is where the world of mutual benefit comes in. Myra's heart was mixed. He didn't know how to lead his people to this point, true or false. He understood the truth of what Jin Xiuhui said. It's just that I can't get over the hurdle in my heart. Jin Xiuhui heard Miao Yila's helpless sigh behind him. He suddenly turned his head and said with a wicked smile that there was no need to worry. There has to be a process of adaptation. You just eat the beef and think it through. When Myra heard the word beef, saliva gushes uncontrollably from the corners of the mouth. He felt that what Jin Xiuhui said was too right. Each race has a different philosophy, but it is not as heavy as beef. This post-00S employee wanted to beat up his boss, just because the boss told him not to play games when he went to work. The post-00S didn't talk back, which made the boss very happy. This post-80s employee was arranged by his boss to work overtime all night. You are not allowed to go home. The post-80s generation guaranteed to complete the task without any complaints. The boss's house dislikes the disobedient post-80s. Let's start the main body of the story. After Jin Xiuhui returned to the territory, the first time to come to the project site to check, the construction of the honeypot community is still ongoing. Building 101 has been topped out and dismantled the safety net. Building 102 is still a few floors away. As winter approaches, before the temperature drops below freezing, whether the 102 buildings can be completed. It was his concern before he left for the jungle of Evglow. One of them is because he's worried about the phenomenon of emotion. A certain percentage of water needs to be added to the concrete. When the temperature drops below freezing, the moisture in it will freeze and wait until winter passes. As the temperature rises, the water melts. As a result, a stream of impurities occurs inside the concrete. There are many droplets. As a result, the strength of the concrete is greatly reduced. It is not possible to reach the extent of model calculation. There is no chance that the building will collapse. Come to think of it, Jin Xiuhui touched his chin. Be proud of your accomplishments. He didn't have to worry about it anymore. The elves joined in the construction of the honeypot community. They are born in the jungle and grow up in the jungle. Born to climb and jump ores. Possess faster and more agile skills than apes. Those for humans. Extremely dangerous work. After they took over, it's easy and fast. In addition, you can eat beef after you finish your work. This powerful boss blessing. The construction speed of the whole project has become very fast. In the midst of a busy job, time passes imperceptibly. The first snow fell on the old ridge of front. After Jin Xiuhui invested all his manpower and material resources, buildings 101 and 102 of the Miguan community were finally completed in time. Now only one last step remains, the thermal insulation coating. 2 buildings can be heated on an experimental basis. Kim Xiuhui plans to do so this winter. The 2 buildings were used for testing. And then next fall too, construction will be carried out with the goal of occupancy by all employees. Thermal insulation layer. The most important thing is the material. Use Alencia leaves and soybean oil. Mix at a ratio of 1 to 100. Kim Xiuhui personally supervised and guided the work of the soldiers. Be sure to apply the insulating paint evenly and neatly. Don't pass around every corner. When a building, all rooms of the heating combined plumbing. After all the insulation has been painted, Kim Xiuhui ordered to start burning the boiler. The steam boiler began to run at full capacity. A large amount of water vapor is soon produced. Then go into the main duct for heating. Then along the main pipeline. Pipes into the various rooms branching. Due to the coating of outdoor pipes. Brush the insulation 3 times. The temperature inside the pipe is preserved to the greatest extent, and the surface of the room heating. Just a thin layer of brushing. A portion of the temperature can spread into the room, although it was icy and snowy outside, and the interior is as warm as the rest. The construction of both buildings ended perfectly. The next step is to take ownership of the people. Jin Xiuhui and Haver had just come outside. He beckoned the soldiers to prepare to arrange for the personnel to take charge. Haver rushed, screamed at young master Jin Xiuhui. I think it's all about moving in. He wasn't done yet. Was interrupted by Jin Xiuhui unreasonably. Oh, it's snowing right now. I'm busy. I'll talk later. Then Havel was tossed aside, turned around, and called Byron over. Haver was angry in his heart. It's like being stuck in the throat by a cockroach. Not to mention how uncomfortable it feels. Kim Xiuhui shouted to Byron. Priority is given to families with children. Then it was replaced by the old man. They're the kind of people. It is also necessary to re-rank in terms of health. After check-in order, those who were not able to move and were arranged to underfloor heating. No one should be left hungry with the cold. Haver listened to Jin Xiuhui in shock. A canon-like arrangement. He didn't expect that the young master had already thought it through. The distribution turned out to be exactly what he had in mind. If Haver knew, Jin Xiuhui's reason for so assigned. Probably a punch in the bastard's face. Kim Xiuhui wants every refugee to be healthy. Many happy returns. The aim is to get them to work hard and pay taxes in the future. After handing over the assignment to Byron, Jin Xiuhui then said to Haver, let's go meet the Baron. There is another project to be done in the winter. Jin Xiuhui's attitude of taking care of things and deciding things on his own let Haver want to beat him up. Since the day he suddenly changed his personality. That's always been the case. It's the end, but it will make Haver hate it. Even now. Instead, everyone around him will become more and more dependent on him. After the two left the honeypot community, all the way to the bottom of the Baron's mansion. At this moment, a familiar horn sound was heard, with the cold winter wind blowing. Jin Xiuhui said suspiciously, "Isn't that the sound of the horn?" Haver answered in the affirmative, yes. It should be an envoy of His Majesty the King. Down at the bottom of the Baron's mansion at this moment. That one, the flamboyant foreign envoy has just arrived, and the Baroness were on their knees to greet them. The envoy is still the same animal. Sheik turns on the cleaning sex of the Queen's sister. The envoy began to read solemnly. In the face of recent events, the Frontlao domain leads by example. I was amazed. According to the following credits, it was decided to issue a directive to the territory of Flantrao. When the Qi Ling arrived in the territory of Flantrao, the territory of Frontrao will be elevated to an earldom. After reading the Queen's sister's handwritten letter, the envoy immediately knelt down and saluted in return. Congratulations to the Earl of Flantrao for his promotion and salary increase. The counts couldn't believe it. It's really the ancestral grave that is smoking. The two of them burst into tears of excitement. They know it in their hearts. All this glory goes to their son Lloyd. Hard work pays off. This man is trying to satisfy the needs of beautiful women. I'm working hard to do sweaty things. Who knew that he was caught red-handed by the beautiful woman's father? The beauty is so ashamed that she doesn't want to live. Let's start the main body of the story. Although it was the first snow of early winter, but the envoy was still dressed coolly. As you can guess, the envoy has profound magical powers. He is cultivated to the realm of unclear cold and heat. The envoy read aloud. Credit 1. Stopped a massive migration of monsters from the east. Credit 2. Refugees from the eastern region who have lost their homes have been protected. Merit 3 made the eastern part of the fortified region in one fell swoop. Hence the order of the Earl of Longtrao. The realm is independent from the county of Countdom of Cremo to become the central city of the redevelopment of the East. The royal family will be in the next 10 years. Particularly, provide the budget and materials needed for the reconstruction of the East. And exempt from all royal taxes for the next 20 years. Jin Xiuhui danced happily after the envoy. The bastard's heart blossomed. He used all the compliments he had for the Queen's sister. Jin Xiuhui knew very well what the Queen's sister was thinking. In this era of underdeveloped transportation, it is very difficult to move people in large numbers. So there is hardly any way to think of building a big city. But Jin Xiuhui desperately left all the refugees behind. Solved the biggest problem of creating a big city. All that remains is the question of funding for investment and construction. Therefore, the Queen's sister will spend a lot of money to help him build a territory. The purpose is to gamble. I will be the first to achieve this great feat. King, now that Jin Xiuhui already knows the content of the Red Order, then it is necessary to hurry forward to the next step. He called Haver to go to the village with him. He had long expected this day, so already thinking about what to do. Except for Lacona's self-conscious territory. All other eastern frontier territories. Now it's all Fran. The earldom of Trao. They have more land to work with. The figure of the two of them fading away was noticed by the Earl. The Count's heart was full of emotion. His son did what he couldn't. Not only did it get the family out of debt, he also made the title of Baron and Earl. These are nothing short of miraculous. In fact, if you look at it from the perspective of economic construction, Jin Xiuhui simply created a miracle. A large number of refugees poured into the territory of Flantrao on their own. A large sum of money was invested by the Queen's sister in the small territory of Flantrao. It's just a temporary shelter. The so-called put to death and then live. Jin Xiuhui was on the verge of collapse at the limit. Use means to tie the queen's sister to the ship. He took the opportunity to the extreme. He has made a leap forward in class. He gambled everything and became a winner in the end. On the night of the special envoy's reading of the queen's red decree. In just a few hours, the heart of the village of the old territory of Flante, and erected a majestic queen. The statue is wrapped with blooming flowers, like a festive lantern, although somewhat offbeat, but it slightly obscured the statue's hospitality. It adds a little more gentleness and hope. Kim Soho lit a bonfire around the statue, organized the elders of the territory to dance a blessing dance. While jumping, he shouted that Her Majesty would live forever. The statue of the queen is like a god, receiving the power of incense from believers. It's a very jerky approach. Sister Queen, if here, definitely shouted. Jin Xiuhui will explain to you later. Jin Xiuhui shouted slogans loudly while jumping. All shout louder. Let our voice reach the ears of His Majesty. The Queen's sister is far away in the royal capital. It must not be possible to hear it with your own ears. But the Queen's envoy hasn't left yet. The envoy is the same. A bomb was seen exploding in front of him, shocked and covered in cold sweat. After returning to the royal capital, the envoy reported to the Queen as soon as possible. To the Queen's sister, this is no longer an accident, but a fright. Yelling at the Lloyd bastard, immediately ordered them to stop doing this. Now it's wonderful. Let me explain what this means. First of all, let's talk about the statue of the living. The Queen serves as the main army of the exotic. Lead the people to live a happy life. Erect a statue to accept the admiration of the people. This matter is of the people's own free will. That's understandable. Of course, the purpose of refining the heroic bastard is mainly to pat on the back. The main problem is dancing around the bonfire and praying for blessings. That's a bit of an exaggeration. Receive the power of incense from believers. That's a treat that only gods can enjoy. The Queen isn't dead yet. He is a living man. Dare to compare the traitorous gods now. It's like a heifer flying to the sky. In the Middle Ages, faith in God. It is the cognition that is engraved into the bone marrow of each person. Even the Queen herself. They will pray to the gods to bless the country with good fortune. The Queen is also counting on. The gods helped him. How dare he be a traitor to the gods? Jin Xiuhui's approach is like a sycophant. It's a pleasure to shoot just right. Overshoot it. The leader looks back with a big mouth. This is the Queen. My sister couldn't beat him even if she was far away. After Viscount Lackner got the news, don't dare to delay for a moment. I don't care about the cold of winter. Rode his horse to the bottom of the house of the Count of Frontrow. He's dying of panic now. Once a sworn enemy. It's not just about sucking his blood with a contract anymore. Now, he has become his top boss. The official level crushed people to death. The brothers now let him eat. He had to say it was fragrant. When Arkner came to the bottom of the Count's house, as soon as they met, they immediately came to pay a big salute and shouted loudly congratulations on your elevation to the Earl. The Earl said Viscount with some embarrassment. You don't have to be so polite. I'm not used to the title of Earl. Luckner quickly delivered a string of rainbow farts. How so? Your noble identity and character. Earning the title of Earl couldn't be more appropriate. At this point, his face was pressed against the ground. The Count couldn't see the gritted teeth. I was already resentful to the extreme. Luckner really never thought that the other party would become a beau. Lord used to be at a party among nobles. He laughed and ignored the other many times. Even said that the other party was a poor ghost. But that's all in the past. Just behave now. After all, the other party is nothing but kindness. Just take advantage of that. It's sure to be easy to fool around. The Count continued, I'm sure you've heard of it too. Our territory was rebuilt because of Donggu. There's a lot to do. So we're in dire need of manpower right now. I want to ask for something to be self-conscious. Hopefully you'll send some soldiers. Help out in the engineering unit. Lacona agreed without hesitation, of course. Please, do you need more? The young earl said with some embarrassment. If it's too much. The Viscount is definitely under pressure. So I think it's up to the Viscount to prepare. At this point, the Count paused slightly. Luckner had a bad premonition. This last sentence is so familiar. There should be the second half of the sentence left unfinished. The son of the other party. That hateful bastard Lloyd. Something similar was said before. Luckner quietly lifted his head a little and looked up. Saw a face as terrible and cruel as Lloyd. I only listened to the Earl's cold and indifferent words. It doesn't affect our friendship. Luckner really didn't expect that. That kind man turned out to be different. I thought I could get through the tricks. Now it's completely out of play. Luckner is bleeding again for sure. He walked out of the Earl's mansion in a trance. Liang choked and climbed onto the horse. This is done unconsciously. As a result, he fell off the horse without sitting firmly. Fell and not sturdy. All this was seen by the Count by the window. He has not bullied anyone so far, not to mention threatening others. He felt so weird in his heart. Look at Lacna's pitiful appearance. It must have hurt to the extreme. Most of them will not recover in a short period of time. The Count remembered the countless times Lacner had done it to himself. Humiliate. Suddenly, there was a feeling of revenge. This boss helps employees build houses for free. Give employees a stable job and a stable income. There's even the legendary overtime pay. But he did something that was angry and resentful. Was beaten up by his own important subordinates. Let's start the main body of the story. Jin Xiuhui. After handing over the work of arranging check-in to Bayern, outsiders will get the job done quickly. Right now, the two buildings of the honeypot community have all been occupied. At this time, the system suddenly prompts. You've earned a milestone in Sure. Workers contribute to your command. Completed the construction of the first community in the Laoa continent. With a reward of 700.2p. Currently holds 4,783.2p. Kim Xiuhui is excited now. What he has done for refugees has borne fruit. Now that the seed has been planted, now it's time for the harvest. In a place of concentrated residence of refugees. Residents who are not assigned to the buildings of the honeypot community. They are assigned to independent underfloor heating houses. Food delivered to refugees today. It's not just meat. There was even bread. Such a diet is compared to fleeing. It's like heaven. It's a family of 3. They were happy with the food supply today. The wife told her husband to hurry up and eat. But my husband seems to have lost some appetite. He asked his wife and children to eat first. My husband is very grateful to the young master in his heart. At the time of their displacement, everything done for all. He used to be able to support himself on his own. The ability of the whole family. But now it has been reduced to relying on others for charity. To be able to live. As a hardworking man, his self-esteem, the heart cannot accept this kind of long-term help. I don't want to live like this. He wanted to support his family with his own hands. Then he heard a cheer outside. It turned out that Master Lloyd had come to visit them. The man hurried out of the room. Kim Xiuhui led Haver to the refugees. Greet everyone. Difficult. The people, men and women, young and old, were grateful to him. Even the dogs wagged their tails happily. An old grandmother walked over, grabbing Jin Xiuhui's hand, and said, "Can make me an old woman. Shake your hand before you die." Jin Xiuhui said to the old grandmother gently, "No, you'll outlive me." A little kid stopped Jin Xiuhui and wanted to take a photo with him. The two posed in front of the artist. This is comparable to a kindergarten-level painter. Actually painted Jin Xiuhui vividly. The scene was so warm and peaceful. Kim Xiuhui is loved by the refugees. He also had a big smile on his face. And I wish the refugees around me good health and happiness. But as Jin Xiuhui's personal entourage, Haver knows. The young master never does things that don't make money. In other words, what the young master is doing now is all about making money. He had a bad premonition. The young master's plan to reap the benefits of the refugees. It's about to be implemented. Sure enough, Jin Xiuhui's hypocritical attitude. It lasted less than 3 seconds. The soldiers suddenly set up tables and chairs in the clearing. And then there will be a thick bunch of contracts that have long been prepared. On the table, each one represents the fruits of a bountiful harvest. Jin Xiuhui, the bastard, smiled happily and said that, "Let's start paying off your debts. I have prepared a labor contract for you." Refugees are fed up by the sudden situation. Some are overwhelmed, began to talk in a whisper, just a man of a family of 3. And so it goes. Kim can understand the refugees' reactions. He waited for someone to walk out half squinting, but no one came to sign the contract for half a day. He was a little upset. With a gloomy face, he said how could he eat white food for the rest of his life? Kim Xiuhui, as the future boss. They are destined not to be friends with their employees. Pack Sings draw a line between each other. It is their inevitable end. The refugees were stunned. Why was it that Lloyd, who was still kind and kind just now? The young master turned his face in the blink of an eye. It's that they don't know. This is the true face of an unscrupulous boss. Jin Xiuhui's capitalist face. Haver couldn't stand it anymore. He couldn't tell which was the real young master. Whispers among the refugees continued. Kim Xiuhui has already made his attitude clear. He was waiting for the refugees to decide. This is the man of the family of 3 stepped forward and said, "Master Lloyd, all I have to do is sign this contract. Can you get a job?" Jin Xiuhui was very satisfied. As long as someone takes the lead, things are much easier. He smiled and said, "Of course. And in addition to the monthly salary, there is also an overtime allowance. But as long as you sign, after getting the first month's salary, you'll have to use your own money to buy food and wood." Human society always followed the process of creating and exchanging value. As a result, money was derived as the currency of the transaction. The lad is well aware. The money in your pocket is the most reliable. There is an end to the charity of others. The young man said firmly, "I don't want to live by the kindness of others. Could you please tell me the contents of the contract?" Jin Xiuhui emphasized to him, "It can be harsh, because the style of our territory is very capitalist." The lad was a peasant of the feudal dynasty. He didn't understand what capitalism meant, but he had already decided to be self-reliant. In fact, Jin Xiuhui's help to the refugees. It's just a different way. Help you build a house for free. Help you find a stable job for free. There will be no arrears of wages when due. Where can I find such a good boss? I sent free help to marry a daughter-in-law, and free help with having children. Then, a young girl on the side plucked up the courage to ask, "May I ask Master Lloyd, can women also participate?" Jin Xiuhui said affirmatively, "We do not discriminate against gender." Since someone started, then things go a lot smoother. After a while, a lot of young and middle-aged people lined up. They all want to be in control with their own hands. Own life. Ding Xiuhui said with a confident smile, "I will produce with stable food and distribution of land for the purpose of individual ownership. Terrace reclamation projects on hillsides. Cut off part of the slopes of the eastern mountains. Make a step. The terrace fields are terraced with stone dragon net retaining walls. This can be easily done with the use of steel bars. Unfortunately, something unexpected happened. That's when Little Belle fell ill. It's all because of the working period of the Honeypot Community Project. Other fantasy shops are all hard work. Carry general things or go for a run. Only the small bell is a gastrointestinal work. You need to eat all kinds of soil constantly in order to produce construction materials. A weak little girl, forced every day by the bastard boss. Use skills nonstop. Production of cement and steel bars for honeypot communities. When Shoji Hao came to visit the little bell, 3 boys were accompanying him. Little Buton and Little Hama. There was genuine concern in his eyes. Xiao Bibong, this nerd is distressed. The goddess in the heart is sick. It's all because of this bastard in front of you. He even had the courage to appear in front of him. Little by Bang flew up with a kick. The knot was firmly on Jin Xiuhui's face. This is an ancient beast. King Stima's angry blow. Pure Yang Tongzi Gong, who has been single for 500 years. Is it a joke? Refine the face of the bold bastard. A footprint is clearly printed. He also understands that he can't squeeze the little bell anymore. A different approach is needed. The man drew 3 times in a row. I almost killed myself. The first time I drew Wulong, it was vigorous. The second time, the bomb exploded. The third time, I drew a terrifying man-eating monster. It's just because he has a pit system against him. Let's start the main body of the story. A bright moon hangs high in the night sky. The bright moonlight fell on the old territory of front. Because the little bell has been working too hard lately. Adequate rest is required. Jin Xiuhui plans to smoke another fantasy suit. Fill in the holes of the little bells. Helped him with the subsequent construction of the terraces. He took Xiao Budong and Xiao Hama to the playground. I originally wanted to ask Xiao by Bang to come together to let Xiao Ling in. Rest quietly at home. But the nerd said that he wouldn't leave the bell at all. Bell sighed. Jin Xiuhui thought about it for several days. Only in this way can the problem of material shortage be solved. The system is too cheap. Kept scratching his head on the side and making gestures to urge and seduce him. It's even more expensive than Jin Xiuhui. The lottery is also hard. The more anxious the system is, Jin Xiuhui was more and more uncertain. He never believed in pie-in-the-sky good things. All the good things that seem good on the surface. Traps have been dug in the back. But the system of this guy is always teasing and tossing him. But every time something urgent happens, they will all give him help like hanging. Start with the first fantasy, Pu Xiao Budong. Then came the little bells. And finally, little Hama. It's all at a critical moment. Give him the illusion he needs most. There are also later little bell upgrade skills. It also helped him solve his urgent needs. Now I've accumulated so much RP. Can be drawn many times. It doesn't matter if it fails. Let's take a gamble. The love scene is frustrated, and the casino is proud. Is there anyone more frustrated than young Master Ben's love scene? Lao Tzu should be able to make retaining walls. Fantasy pot of steel mesh. With a click, Jin Xiuhui decisively pressed the lottery button. The familiar sound of gears turning in mid-air sounded. He prayed in his heart for the god's blessing. But the mind kept on it, recalling the immoral things I have done. Roast the carrots over a fire. Forcing elven beauties to give in is guilty. He slashed the body of the queen's sister with a groping pig's hand. It doesn't seem to be a glorious thing. Does it still work for the time being? Will there be retribution? That's when it happened. The magic array in front of him suddenly swelled rapidly. The size has become several times larger than just now. Jin Xiuhui felt very different about the situation. Loud drama ruler asks what is going on. It's different from the previous times. This guy didn't answer him. This made him chuckle in his heart. Suddenly, I had a bad feeling. Sure enough, suddenly a stream erupted from the magic array. Bursting flames. Jin Xiuhui is too close to Magic Town. There was no time to dodge. The fire dragon slammed into his face. It's a pity that Haver is not on the side. Otherwise, it's time to make fun of the bastard again. It's ugly. Now it is still baked. Jin Xiuhui looks confused. I didn't expect this to be the result. He turned his head to look behind the system on the side. The other party laughed unjustly, completely ignoring Jin Xiuhui's mood at this time. Jin Xiuhui's whole body exuded the smell of burnt incense. Asked wickedly, "Haven't you always been on my side to help me?" The system mind said peacefully, "I'm just a notification bar that passes the rules. The system is always neutral. If the system mind has corpses, Jin Xiuhui must strangle him. Where the hell do you get your confidence? Say yourself as if. Just like a clerk, Jin Xiuhui held back the anger in his heart. Ask why you've been there. Can give me just the fantasy clothes I need. The system snorted coldly. The original blue color gradually turned bloody. It's like the devil revealing his ultimate purpose. Jin Xiuhui saw the situation. I couldn't help but have doubts in my heart. Gritted his teeth and looked at the bastard system. Get ready to see what he has to say. The system has completely turned a terrifying dark red. Constantly hee-hee. And he has been for a long time, when the atmosphere is solemn to the extreme. Said poor and stupid Jin Xiuhui. You really don't know anything. Jin Xiuhui had never seen it. The system has such a cold attitude. In this atmosphere of horror, can't help but the stars. Is there a catastrophe that is about to befall you? The system goes on to say that gambling is what it is. A little benefit for newbies. They will think that they will be lucky next time. Jin Xiuhui roared angrily. You created such a terrifying atmosphere. Is it just for the sake of talking this kind of nonsense? This is something that 3-year-olds know. Use you to tell me. You liar returned 150 characters to Lao Tzu. The system said in the tone of education. How can this world be as you wish? Don't think about life too simply. Although it was spoofed by the system. But what the other party said made him very much agreed. Human society is the law of the jungle in reality. How can there be any quiet years? It's just someone who carries the weight for you. He struggled to survive at the bottom. I understand this best. The system scratched his head in front of him. You might be able to get something good this time. Then the lottery will be topped with a well-trimmed face. Under this cue visual difference, it says 225 RP draws once. It's easy to overlook. The pen girl is full of routines. The last time it was 150 RP draws. What a profiteer. Refined monkey essence, monkey spirit. Of course, you can see the little tricks of the system. But his heart itched. What if I can win the jackpot this time? He couldn't help but smoke again. It wasn't Spitfire that rewarded him this time. Rather, there was a violent explosion. Jin Xiuhui angrily smashed his fist into the system mine. The system dodges the angry blow. Hurry up and dissuade and wait a minute. Don't worry, listen to me first. After Jin Xiuhui calmed down a little, the system says that life is not a 3-set winner. Jin Xiuhui knows that gambling is a trap. And the system also told him that gambling was a trap. But he owes it. He's been unlucky twice. How can anyone be unlucky 3 times in a row? In other words, to what extent a person lacks virtue will be unlucky 3 times in a row. Jin Xiuhui's wealthy family asked himself if he was a kind person, but also beware of the system deliberately cheating him. When he clicked the lottery sword, immediately after a headshot, he squatted down and laughed. When I'm a fool, how could it be hit 3 times? But Jin Xiuhui didn't know that he had taken the bait. Jin Xiuhui lay on the ground and waited for a while. But the gears of the magic circle were turned and ended. Still no flames erupted. When he quietly opened his closed eyes, unearth the glow of the original blue-green magic circle on your head. Now it's orange-red. This time the magic circle became huge. A huge billion-dimensional one crawled out of it. The monster, though, has just stuck out ahead, but it has already shown a powerful and terrifying momentum. Then he couldn't wait to open his bloody mouth. Rushed towards Jin Xiuhui on the ground. Jin Xiuhui was scared to pee and run away. You don't have to look at this terrifying momentum to know. This guy is definitely not going to help himself make a retaining wall. Reinforcement mesh. There is only one place that is safest at this time. That's Haver's side. Finally trimmed and ran back to his bedroom. Wake up the sleeping Haver. He pointed to the bloody basin outside the window. Don't sleep. Hurry up and take out that guy. Haver was dreaming in a daze. I didn't see what the opponent was. It's like sleepwalking. With a wave of his hand, he cut off the monster's head with a sword. What a god! Snoring and slashing people. This post, 00S employee uses his ass to push the boss into the air. The boss asked him why he dared to be so awesome. The post, 00's employees said arrogantly. I don't know if young people are in demand now. You give this money. It's hard for you to do things. Let's start the main body of the story. After a dazed Haver slashed the monster, then go back to sleep. And Jin Xiuhui gasped desperately on the playground. It's a blessing to survive. That's when the system suddenly tells him that you didn't win. Jin Xiuhui roared angrily. I don't know. You madman to Lao Tzu. Get away. Young Master Ben won't smoke. I'll wait for the little bell to rest for a month before construction. That's when the system suddenly told him. You've met the hidden conditions. Families are ruined. Because I didn't win 3 times in a row. The body and character are ravaged and not decent. Based on the damage you have taken. Ability options for spawning fantasy servants. Jin Xiuhui felt a little different. What's going on here? Ability options can be generated. The skill preview table expands. There are too many skills to count. Like a huge wall. Presented in front of Jin Xiuhui. Jin Xiuhui was shocked. Why is the system so big all of a sudden? With so many skills, which one should you choose? Are these all given for free? It didn't take long for him to understand. How can the system be so big? These garbage skills. Just by looking at the name, you know that you can't help with the construction. He slowly made up in front of the skill wall. Take a closer look at the skills one by one. Trying to figure out what worked for him. Suddenly a skill caught his attention. The name of the skill is Extract Spider Silk. A flash of inspiration flashed through his mind. Begin to slowly recall what you have learned. Spider silk compared to steel of the same thickness. It has more than 3 times the tensile strength and elasticity. It is resistant to moisture, even with prolonged exposure to sunlight. It also stays firm. Come to think of it, the corners of Jin Xiuhui's mouth couldn't help but be effective. This is also the young master who is well informed. Someone else is absolutely stumped. He had forgotten what had happened just now. Jin Xiuhui chose this skill. He is asked if he will spawn a fantasy suit. Tell us the value of the required RP. And shows his current RP value. Kim Xiuhui decided. Don't hesitate to choose to generate fantasy suits. Spider silk pumping skills. It will definitely help him get out of this difficult situation. With the sound of gears from the magic array. The new fantasy suit was finally generated the next morning. Bright sunlight poured into Kim Xiuhui's bedroom. Haver opened his eyes in a daze. He slept soundly last night. I didn't hear the young master snoring. I even had a strange dream. It seems that the young master is asking him for help. Oops, I can't think of it. Early morning over the old territory of front. Suddenly, I remembered a burst of loud birds. People who are busy are attracted to this sound. Curiously looking up at the sky. A small black that suddenly appeared in the dazzling sunlight. It seems that something is coming. A moment later, a huge creature flew above their heads. Block out strong sunlight. Because it's too dazzling to meet the daylight. Residents couldn't see what it was. Jin Xiuhui happily ordered loudly and well. Just go around the territory like this. With a lonely roar. A huge head. A large white bird completely unfit for flying. Soaring through the sky with Jin Xiuhui. The people working down there finally saw it clearly. It's Roy's young master. A cheer ensued. The young master is really a genius summoner. This time, he summoned a summoned beast that could fly. Jin Xiuhui heard the people shouting in adoration. Suddenly stood up on the back of the big bird. The sunlight behind him formed a dazzling light around him. He was like a flying god. Tell the people on the ground. He is the embodiment of light and hope. There's a purpose in refining the ambition bastard. Take advantage of the bird's ability to fly. Stay in the hearts of the people, under the impression that he is omnipotent. Promote their loyalty to themselves. This will not only improve their productivity, it also allows them to water actively. It was also a surprise that Jin Xiuhui could get this bird. He had expected to pull out the spider. Unexpectedly, it was a horse dog that was drawn. although there was some panic at the time. Panicked and thought that the system had pitted him again. Who would have thought that this bird could actually produce spider silk? It made him feel like he was making a fortune in an instant. The main skill of the little citizen is to smoke spider silk. The bonus skill is to build a nest by throwing spider silk. Puff crit. He had a backpack on his back. Spider silk can be spit out from the hole in the backpack. Jin Xiuhui used his maximum magic to do the tinsel test. As a result, the spider silk was only slightly stretched. His quality is simply flawless. It's really tough. Jin Xiuhui pointed to a certain place and said to the flying sparrow, "Sister-in-law, let's go to the flat land over there. Try making a lattice web with the spider silk throwing skill." Xiao Guming sighed with a bored face. "I've had enough. The master will take you to fly for a while, and you are not satisfied. I actually have to call the master inch by inch." Jin Xiuhui suddenly realized that something was wrong because of the little citizens, and did not fly as he instructed, even farther and farther away from the place he instructed. Jin Xiuhui shouted and waited. "Where are you going? It's not here." Xiao Guming continued to fly forward as if she hadn't heard. He went over the woods and found an empty space, and then it fell straight down. Then he cocked his tail and shook his buttocks. Jin Xiuhui hasn't figured out what's going on yet. Was thrown away by this inertia. This bastard was thrown a dog, eating shit. The whole person threw himself on the snow and rolled out for a long time. Jin Xiuhui was confused by the sudden appearance of the move. Covering his face, he asked in surprise, "Bastard, what are you doing?" "I saw my sister-in-law holding a branch in her mouth, leaning against the trunk of a tree, comfortably patting the stomach." Half-raised eyelids lazily looked at the master in front of him. Then he replied lightly, "The master is tired." Jin Xiuhui found out that this guy is good everywhere. The only bad thing is that I'm too lazy. How to get him to work hard? It's hateful. The unscrupulous boss wants to hire a free worker. The coolie came to a slacker who ate white food. The supervisor helps the boss to spin boldness together. But it attracted a blow to the new employees. The director said angrily, "Looks like I'm going to have to train you well. Let's start the main body of the story." Jin Xiuhui looked at the leisurely little citizen in front of him. "Recall what happened last night." The sparrow had just been summoned. Jin Xiuhui asked Xiao Guming curiously, "You're going to smoke spider silk, right? Can you show me what kind of spider silk it is?" The sparrow, who was originally curious to look at Jin Xiuhui, after hearing this request, the eyes looked lazily away. He sighed helplessly. "Then kick your feet, lean back, lie comfortably on the ground. There is no intention of showing skills at all." My sister-in-law said, "I don't know. Why should I live for labor? I still have to live by labor." After refining it, the face changed as soon as it was brushed. Looking at the sparrow in front of him, he thought about it. This guy is pretty fresh. They are completely different from Xiao Budong. Xiao Budong, who was on the edge of the city, walked to the sparrow. Take the initiative to say hello to the lazy sparrows. Xiao Mingai replied unreliably. Two fantasies. It's not like getting to know each other. Xiao Budong then said energetically, contribute to the construction of social infrastructure. Improve the quality of human life. You can get corresponding rewards and a sense of accomplishment. Self-realization becomes the pride of the world. Little citizens who lay on the ground without saying a word. Listen to little Buden's impassioned speech. Feel Xiao Budong's enthusiasm for work. This thing doesn't even bother to move its brain. I just think this pie is not badly drawn. Why don't you try it first? Then the decision was made by feeling. Lazily said to Xiao Budong, then try it first. That's it. The goods were inspired by Buden to take action. And then it soon became like this again. Little Budong noticed that something was wrong. He got out of Jin Xiuhui's clothes. I saw the sparrow lying lazily on the ground. Then he came to the sparrow again, persuaded from the bottom of my heart to be a good partner. In order to build a harmonious society, let's work together. Speak from the heart. I always feel like little Budong. It's like being brainwashed by some bastard. And scrupulous bosses. I hope to find free labor without spending a penny. Today I met this product on the contrary. If you don't want to do anything, you will eat and drink for nothing. I just heard my sister-in-law's name Tizui say, I can't figure it out. Why do you always have to do drudgery? The world, just leave it alone. He will also develop well on his own. And since that master summoned me, you should have kept me, right? Two creatures with extremely opposite personalities. What it is to get together. The result is Golden Autumn. Hao was trembling by the sparrow's whole body in front of him. He just couldn't stand it. The dust that falls on this guy is so nasty. Jin Xiuhui began to think about making this product into a barbecue. Or steamed. Xiao Budong heard that the sparrow's attitude towards life was so stopping. Miscellaneous shouted at him. It's not right for you to put on that attitude. The sister-in-law was stunned. This little bit in front of him actually dared, pointing fingers at him. Who does he think he is? Then he snorted contemptuously. Spit out the branch in your mouth. The branches rolled and flew forward. One last bang. It just smashed on Xiao Budong's big head. Little Budong didn't expect it at all. The other party said to do it. Smashed him in one fell swoop. As the boss of Jin Xiuhui's fantasy disciples, when have you ever been so ignored? Except for Jin Xiuhui, no one dared to bully him. But he has the strength to take on the ancient monsters alone. Xiao Budong turned his head and said a word to Jin Xiuhui. Jin Xiuhui nodded in agreement. I know. Then take it from your jacket pocket. Take out a red melon seed and hand it to Xiao Budong. The furry child stretches out two little hands. Grab this red melon seed. In the silence of the woods, there was a clear click. It didn't take long. In the woods, the sound of birds flapping their wings was heard again, and the mournful cry of birds. The sparrow was frightened. He fanned his wings desperately, finally got off the ground and flew. Just when he felt that the sky was his domain, it's finally safe to do so, was easily grabbed by Xiao Budong's leg. This thing is dumbfounded. How could there be such a huge creature? Little Budong drooled. It's like seeing a delicious meal. The sparrow kept begging for mercy and begging to be spared. Little Budong, pull the sparrows that are desperately struggling to resist in front of you. Then he opened his bloody mouth and bit the sparrow's head. Then little by little stuffed the sparrow into your mouth. The sparrow was scared to pee. It's going to eat his rhythm alive. Jin Xiuhui was also stunned by this scene. Usually so cute and well-behaved hairy child. The tantrum was so cruel. It is not grilled or steamed, so it is eaten raw. The sparrow's entire body was stuffed into Xiao Budong's mouth. Only half of his head was exposed, begging for mercy. While begging Jin Xiuhui for mercy. On the other hand, he begged Xiao Budong for mercy. It was a long while. The sparrow's tormented cry was hoarse. And there is more air outlet, less air intake. Little Budong thinks it's about the same. He spat out the half-dead sparrow. The sparrow lay limply on the ground. For the rest of his life, he no longer dared to pretend to be forced. Little Budong wiped the saliva from his lips. Say how? Do you want to keep playing? The sparrow was scared to pee. This time in the mouth. Maybe it'll be in your stomach next time. Hurry up and take a stand. In the future, I will be angry and strong. Work hard. Get this satisfactory answer. Little Budong smiled triumphantly. I have to say that the lonely are dark. Little Budong, you kid also joined. Hell of a lineup. Jin Xiuhui really didn't expect it. Something that I can't do on my own. Xiao Budong actually got it done in 3 or 2 clicks. It's really a capable person who has been trained by himself. As the saying goes, a stick beats a filial son. From ancient times to the present day, beatings are the cure for disobedience. Play chess against yourself. It is the highest state of distraction and dual use. But this man is purely idle. He finally fulfilled his ultimate desire to be idle. Why is life so miserable? Let's start the main body of the story. The little unknown blue bird was completely shut down. The construction of terraces has also begun to progress steadily. The first step is to excavate and level the surface of the hillside. The second step is to make the small wall with the greatest size and strength collapse. Use an extra-large sieve. Shake out the soft soil from the soil that everyone dug up. Isn't it weird? Why don't you accompany the goddess? Instead, they came to work, because there is another stupid shortage. Replace the work of the goddess. Just do the work. The goddess doesn't have to work hard. It's all about great love. The key work ahead. It's time to replace the little bell sparrow. After being educated by the unscrupulous boss's supervisors, he was thoroughly honest. The third step is small and unknown on a very good slope. Spit out spider silk in a grid shape. The sparrows are now clean and full. Because of the boss's supervisor's personal guidance, separate a small stove for him. Motivates him to work hard to get the job done. Jin Xiuhui rode on Xiao Gumming's body to guide the construction. Next, it's the White Lancers who haven't appeared in a long time to join. This is the ace elite that only he can command. Origin Worker. The White Lancers heard Jin Xiuhui's call. Tears of excitement welled up in their hearts. This is the recognition of the faith in the heart. This is their proud origin work. Step 5. On the spider silk that the grid hits. Repounce on the soft soil that has been sifted through the small wall collapse. Repeatedly spread the soil like this. The backfill material is made. Step 6. Use this backfill method to fill in the bevel corners. It can make the bevel angle extremely strong. The use of stone dragon net as a beveled lateral retaining is called. Accurately throw rocks and pebbles into the stone dragon net. Increase the dead weight of the stone dragon net. Resist lateral earth pressure of backfill. After everyone's hard work, the terraces in the first area were officially completed. Jin Xiuhui looked at the construction results in front of him. I feel very satisfied. It should be completed by spring. The refugees were given the land. Then increase the speed of building the community. It will all be over next year. Wait until that time. Lao Tzu's hard life as a civil engineer can be thorough. The end is waiting for me. It is about to be the life of a jobless vagrant after getting rich. The construction work is progressing nonstop. The shovel was the belief of the White Lancers. In sweat, they get a great sense of accomplishment. The Earl, who has just been promoted and raised for a few days. He and Byron took on the job of a data clerk, dealing with a mountain of paperwork. The cold winter passed imperceptibly. When the spring of revival comes, the construction of the terraces was also completed on schedule. Jin Xiuhui, how even divides the land. Become a neat piece of fertile land. Facilitate subsequent assignments. This is a farming model that has never appeared in the history of the mainland. Jin Xiuhui is under tremendous pressure every day. Now the terraces have finally been completed. He can also start enjoying life at a leisurely pace. Glass. Refugees who have lost their locks have their own land. There is more and more hope for a happy life. A prompt is sent by the system. The construction of the terraces in the old territory of Fronte is completed. You have become the best in the history of the continent. A civil engineering scholar. Reward 800.2p. Currently holds 4,070.2p. You get a new praise. Hunger and cold. The leader of the way. The area of praise is the county of Vorentrau. The term of praise is 30 years. Praise the CP provided to 3 points. Praise the effect. Increases the chance of a good harvest by 300% in the terraced fields under the Donggu Mountains. 200% increase in harvest. Now the refugees have been given land. The rest is left unresolved with the housing problem. The construction of other buildings in the honeypot community is progressing steadily. Byron can handle it themselves. There is no need for Jin Xiuhui's on-site guidance. And Jin Xiuhui was completely idle. Now he has nothing to do every day. He set up a chessboard in his bedroom. 2 more stools were placed on either side of the board. After falling here, Go to the other side and think about your intentions on the other side. Then crack your own chess with a brilliant move. This thing is playing chess with himself. Also pretended to be anxious to think. Haver on the side couldn't stand it anymore. Asked lightly, "Is it interesting?" Jin Xiuhui was depressed in his heart, but said happily that it was great. It was a lot of fun. It's fun other than work. Haver had something to say since that day. "It's the first time I've seen you playing." Jin Xiuhui replied casually without thinking. "I don't have any work to do now. Byron will help me with that. The remaining construction of the community. Since the salary increase, the soldiers also worked harder. Everything is going well." When Jin Xiuhui said this, suddenly paused. A flash of lightning struck his brain. It was as if something had been forgotten by him. That was a long time ago. Father's advice in another world. "Xiuhui, you must remember, when you feel like everything is going well, I have to question whether this is really okay. Be sure to do it." Jin Xiuhui suddenly woke up. The hairs all over the body count down. He suddenly had a bad premonition. Jin Xiuhui from the chair. "Stand up and say to Haver, and say you go to bed later today. I have something to do before I sing you a lullaby." Haver wondered what he was doing so late. Jin Xiuhui said with a solemn expression, "I'm going to have to check what's wrong." Jin Xiuhui came to no man's land. After calling out the system, he's going to use the ending lens. Play the ending through the consumption of CP. It's a big reunion of the current plot. Part of the finale. Play not scenes. 40 CP points required for the second time. Do you want to use play ending? For a safe and bright future. He had to take a look to be reassured. Then press confirm decisively. The male protagonist turned into a dried corpse. And he himself watched all this and could not do anything. His 4 powerful summoning bugs turned into void fragments in the blink of an eye. What does this portend? Let's start the main body of the story. As Jin Xiuhui pressed the OK button, his surroundings were instantly plunged into darkness. Same as the last time you used the end of the ending. It's like waiting in the theater for an upcoming movie. A moment later, the space around him began to distort. It's as if you're cutting into another plane. As the spatial fluctuations tend to level out, the surrounding scenery gradually revealed. The new repair has a familiar feel to it. This was his room. He was a little surprised. Why in your own room? At this point, he seemed to feel something. Attention is drawn to the past in an instant. I saw his own body lying on the bed. Motionless, Haver was standing beside the bed. It was as if something had been done to him. And from Haver there is a powerful magic. Wrestling Jin Xiuhui saw this scene. I was very puzzled. "Haver, what is this doing?" It looks like the doctor is massaging the meridians on the patient. Refine and feel the magic in the air. It all flows to one place. It will flow out as if it were on Haver's body. This made him feel a little different. After feeling it carefully again, discover the confluence of magic in the air. It is Haver's 3-ring magic star, and it's running like crazy at the moment, not only devouring the magic in the air with all its might. He even desperately combed the cord out of his body. Jin Xiuhui was even more puzzled. What the hell is Haver doing? Why is it so crazy to run the heart of mana? Isn't he going to die? Jin Xiuhui subconsciously walked over and reminded him. "Hey, the stinky boy. If you do that, your heart will explode." You stopped in the middle of the conversation. Jin Xiuhui suddenly remembered that the other party couldn't hear it. When he walked to the bedside, the scene that catches your eye made his expression suddenly solemn. Jin Xiuhui had never met Haver. "I've had such an expression as a strong swordsman. This kid moment will maintain a calm state of mind, but his current state of mind has obviously collapsed. Uncontrollable fountains of tears welled up. Put your hands together with your hands crossed. A steady stream of magic. Powerful magic. It even makes the air near the palm of the hand sticky. And the people who were rescued by Haver at this time, it turned out to be himself. His body became extremely emaciated. like a dried corpse lying on the bed. Now it has more air out and less air intake. It's obviously dying. It's time to die. This scene frightened Jin Xiuhui, a terrifying feeling that does not contain any force. It burst out from the bottom of his heart. Jin Xiuhui really couldn't figure it out. How did he become so virtuous? Could it be that in the finale this time, is he going to die again? Just listening to the future Jin Xiuhui took a hard breath. Then he said, Haver tremblingly, with all his might, "Stop it, you know it's hopeless. You've got to survive to be incinerated." Haver knew very well that what he was doing was useless, and it's likely to make your heart explode. But he couldn't stop. How could he just give up? Jin Xiuhui, who was behind him, heard these words. "I couldn't help but have some doubts in my heart. Do you want to incinerate something?" Then, Haver reluctantly withdrew his hands that were holding his heart, stopped the crazy indoctrination of magic. Instead, he grabbed one of Jin Xiuhui's wrists. Then he knelt weakly on the edge of the bed. The future Jin Xiuhui gasped for a while, and then weakly said that I wasn't. I felt that my son Haver was crying silently. Tears poured out uncontrollably. After tears mixed with sweat, slide down the handsome face. Haver whimpered and replied, "No. You have guarded my second home. You are the hero who saved thousands of refugees. You've done so many wonders. I will spread your glorious test body all over the world. Let everyone know." The future Jin Xiuhui is already on the verge of dying. Listen to what Haver is saying. But he was no longer able to answer. Quiet Luo Zhen in the room, but only Jin Xiuhui's difficult gasp was left. The sound gradually changed from staccato to thin hairspring. A moment later, his wheezing voice was gone. Nobody knows. Does the future Kim Xiuhui feel regret? And whether he will return to his original world? But from this moment on, he left this world completely. For lovely fantasy servants gathered around him. Reluctantly, look at the master at this time. Tears fell like pearls with broken threads. The end of the 4 fantasy servants is already doomed. From the moment Jin Xiuhui left this world, their bodies have also become illusory. It soon dissipates from this world. The decomposed energy spreads out in all directions. Soon it disappeared completely. Kim Xiuhui is a bystander. Quietly look at everything in front of you. Cold sweat crept up his cheeks. He was shocked. Jin Xiuhui said to himself silently in his heart, "Don't be in a hurry. Don't panic. I've seen this kind of ending last time. Now it's time to think and judge rationally." I saw Haver's face just now. His appearance has not changed. So this should be in the near future. In the future, Jin Xiuhui's feet will be affected by the ancient snow. Looks like it's dehydrated. But why is that? No snow or ice can be seen on the road. Haver was also not dressed in thick clothes. Then this time should be spring. Haver holds the body of the future Kim Xiuhui. Step by step, we walk towards the center of the territory. Jin Xiuhui didn't have a clue at all. He followed Haver step by step. See what he's going to do next. When they came to the village square, Jin Xiuhui was shocked by the scene in front of him. I saw that the ground was neat. There were countless corpses on display. All of them were from the county of Forentrau. Among these who have died, Jin Xiuhui saw the Earl and the Countess. There were even Terran and White Chamber cavalry. Except for Haver. All of them died. Well-behaved and cute fecal babies fall from the sky. Originally, it was a good deal of fertilizer. But after the baptism of the goddess of ice and snow, it turned into a terrible disaster. Let's start the main body of the story. Thor placed the body of the future fine repair, How in the middle. Then pick up the oil drum that has been prepared long ago from the side. As he cleared the slope, a barrel full of oil was sprinkled. It was drenched on the bodies of the dead. Then he took out the food he had brought with him. Light a greased torch. Haver holds a flaming torch. Step by step, start with Kim Xiuhui, to the remains of every deceased, all lit by torches in Haver's hands. When Jin Xiuhui saw this, finally understood. In the future, Jin Xiuhui said burning words before he died. What is the meaning? It turned out to refer to the burning of corpses. With his current knowledge, the corpses had to be disposed of by incineration, and not burial or some other method. Then there is only one possibility. That's infectious disease. And it's very serious. Infectious diseases with a very high fatality rate. What kind of disease is it that refines how Qin see? I was really stumped this time. He majored in civil engineering at university. It's not medicine. I don't know much about the types of diseases. Medicine is one of the most difficult subjects. There is a saying that is very apt to persuade people to study medicine. The sky thundered. One can imagine how difficult it is to treat in the medical profession. A cold and fever can barely fool around. Such a serious infectious disease. Where is he, a little white, who can stop it? Just in Jin Xiuhui for this matter. When you're burnt out. From the side came Haver's voice. Young Master Lloyd. No, it doesn't matter who you are. You left a last word before. Let me be sure that while your body is burned, say this to you. Haver paused as he said this. Except for the sound of the lute as the flame burns. No more sounds. Haver adjusted his mood. Then firmly and forcefully say the main force. Jin Xiuhui was shocked. Here's what's going on. Future self. Pass yourself the letter number through Haver. Before he could figure it out. Spoilers are over. Jin Xiuhui withdrew from watching the movie. Back in the open space of the playground, he recalled Haver's last words of master and servant. Let him remember V. Jin Xiuhui thought depressedly. What kind of last words were these? It's not a war movie. In desperation with the code, he began to analyze the whole thing. He died just now. It's been through a game with a thorough ending. Then the code just now. It's a reminder of yourself who came to see the ending. If the future of the terminally ill he knows. Talked about this contagion. Then this tip is definitely the solution. But what does that V mean? Resulting in a large number of deaths. Fish-related infectious diseases. Dredging with 10 hateful hands. Jin Xiuhui searched for what medical knowledge he had. But I still don't have a clue. He was spinning around the ground and thinking clearly. Anxious like an ant on a hot pan. All of a sudden, he paused as he walked. A flash of inspiration came to my mind. He seemed to have captured something. Jin Xiuhui followed the clue. Began to respond desperately. It turned out that the direction he had just thought was crooked. He has always thought from what he knows about medicine. But what if it rises to a historical event? The first was the explosion of the population. Then there's the contagiousness that spring causes. Finally, there are mass deaths. Jin Xiuhui finally remembered what it was. It turned out that he wanted to convey this signal in the future. Jin Xiuhui couldn't help but admire in his heart. He's a genius in the future. I didn't lose to my current self. The troubles just now are swept away. After a good night's sleep. It was early the next morning. At this time, the Earl's mansion was in the bottom. Kim Xiuhui is discussing the next plan with Byron. He needed to hire more workers from Cremo. This made Byron a little confused. Jin Xiuhui not only needs a lot of people, and the more quarrymen, the better. Byron didn't ask the young master why. He was just worried that he didn't have enough money in his hands. Although the fears of worshippers are justified. But Jin Xiuhui had no other way. Now the people in the territory are busy farming. And the soldiers and the orcs are both carrying out the construction of the vertical community. If you don't have enough money, you can only break off with Kremerber. Fortunately, the delivery effect can help him save a lot of money. Here's what to say. Praise for the first person to get rid of debt. The praise effect can be the best. Economic creditworthiness. With minimal interest. And the most favorable conditions to obtain investment funds. Byron asked curiously, how big of a project are you going to undertake? Jin Xiuhui thought about it. The answer is similar to that of a honeypot community. Because the project will span the entire territory. It should be a bit of a fuss then. Build a passage that travels through the territory underneath this. It is used for the circulation of excrement. commonly known as sewers. Jin Xiuhui did not tell Bayard the purpose of the construction of sewers, because the enemy to be dealt with this time is an infectious disease, and it's a scourge. But humanity's weapon against disease is not only medicine. There is also prevention before it happens. He's going to go through civil engineering. This hidden danger will be completely eliminated. In the future, he reminded to remember that V refers to European countries. After the world of Weisher entered the era of the Industrial Revolution, the population of the vault has skyrocketed. But at the time, there are no normal sewer facilities in the city. Excrement produced by a large number of people, all thrown into the Multi-X River. Generally speaking, the excrement will drift away with the river and is naturally broken down by microorganisms. But the sudden cold winter brought disaster. The whole river was frozen. As a result, the excrement does not float away properly. They have experienced constant thawing and freezing. Finally, spoilage pollutes groundwater sources. As a result, terrible infectious diseases have arisen. That's woe. After the population explosion, it was originally intended to be dumped into the Felona River, whether it's this year or next year. Once the river is frozen, the territory of Frontrau will also become the same as that of Wis. It's really hard to get a new Xiuhui right now. I finally put an end to the matter at hand. Then trouble came to the door again. But since that's already the case, then we need to remove all the obstacles. Because it doesn't matter if it's a disease or a demon. Can't stop his dream of eating, drinking, and having fun.